All right, so we are back with our next segment, Generations Reflecting on Lifestyles. In the segment where we react to discussions about modern life, human behavior, culture, psychology, and generational change, while comparing them with the emotional atmosphere of the 80s and 90s. And tonight we are reacting to a really thoughtful video from the channel Dry Creek Wrangler School that is called Regrets. And this may sound simple at first, but the deeper he goes into the topic, the more profound the conversation becomes. So his name is Dwayne, and one of the first things Dwayne challenges in the video is this modern motivational phrase, no regrets. So let's listen for a few seconds, and then I will comment on the whole video proposal.
If you were to ask me, Dwayne, name one thing that has helped make you a better horseman, I would have to say one of the things is regret. Regret. Dwayne, what is one of the things that has made you a better human being to your fellow man? There's a lot of things, but one of the things I'd have to say is regret. You know, I look back at horses I had 20, 25 years ago when I didn't know anything, and I didn't have the temperament that I have today. And I look back and I got this horse, and I remember where this horse was. And I remember, however unintentionally, however non-maliciously, I remember to where I took that horse. And I look back at that today, and there's a tinge of regret. I did not put that horse on the best path possible. Not deliberately, but just out of ignorance and youth and impatience. And I regret that. The definition of regret is a disappointment or a sadness over something that you've done in the past. Basically, that's the definition. I look back over the years, and, I just turned 57. And, so there's enough years now to look back at. And I look at relationships I've had, friends and family and, everything. And I look at how I responded to this person and how I reacted to this person and what I did with this person. And I have regrets. I wished I hadn't done that. Wish that hadn't turned out that way. There's a trend going on, at least in this country, maybe in other countries, I don't know today, with this self-help movement where people say no regrets. No regrets.
All right, so commenting about his words, in which he was mentioning this no regrets trends, he strongly disagrees with it, and he argues that regret is not automatically weakness, but actually one of the mechanisms that helps human beings to grow and mature and become safer people to others. And I think that's a very important distinction psychologically, because modern internet culture often promotes this image of complete emotional invulnerability, to never apologize, never look back, never admit mistakes, never feel shame. never reconsider anything. And Dwayne basically says that mindset can become dangerous. And one of the most interesting things he says is that regret functions almost like a safety mechanism. Because if somebody genuinely regrets hurting another person, they become less likely to repeat that behavior. And that's true psychologically. Healthy regret creates self correction, not self not self destruction, but self correction of behavior. And this connects very strongly with what we often talk about here on Retro Lovers Radio through the idea or concept of positive nostalgia or conscious nostalgia. Because positive nostalgia is not about pretending the past was perfect, it, it's not everything was better. It's more about reflecting on the past honestly, consciously, learning from it, recovering valuable emotional lessons from it, and bringing those lessons into the present. And honestly, that's very close to what Duane is describing here. Looking back, not to torture yourself endlessly, but to become wiser, gentler, and more conscious. And what makes this conversation especially interesting is that Duane speaks very much from a late boomer or early Gen Z perspective, uh, ge- getting closer to 60 years old. And there's a certain humility in the way older generations sometimes discuss mistakes, aging, relationships, and regret. And many boomers grew up in environments where life forced people into responsibility very early, with work, marriage, family, physical labor, military service, economic pressure. And because of that, many older adults developed a stronger awareness that actions have consequences, not just emotionally, but concretely. And Gen X often inherited a more skeptical version of this, less idealistic perhaps, or more cynical sometimes, but still highly aware of mistakes, personal responsibility, and emotional consequences. And many Gen X movies and songs are full of regret themes: failed relationships, lost youth, broken dreams, alienation, trying to understand adulthood. And that emotional self awareness became a huge part of 90s culture. But I think millennials experienced a very different cultural atmosphere because by the 2000s and social media era, identity increasingly became performance with personal branding, curated lives, image management, and psychologically, modern culture increasingly began rewarding certainty, confidence, boldness, domination, never look back, and admitting regret online often started feeling dangerous because internet culture can punish vulnerability very quickly. And one of the best distinctions Dwayne makes in the video is the difference between balanced regret and destructive guilt. And this is a very important difference psychologically because regret can help people learn, correct behavior, develop empathy, and mature. But crushing guilt can become self destruction. And many people confuse those two things. So the goal is not living forever trapped in shame. The goal is acknowledging past mistakes honestly while also recognizing you're not exactly the same person anymore. And that is real maturity. Not pretending I never did anything wrong, but also remaining psychologically imprisoned forever by past versions of yourself. So, Duane also says something very strong in the video. He argues that people who genuinely have no regrets often become emotionally dangerous because they stop recognizing the effect their behavior has on others. And you can see traces of this problem in modern culture sometimes, with an extreme self focus, extreme individualism, the idea that my truth automatically justifies everything, and human relationships cannot survive long term without humility, reflection, and accountability. And one reason so many 80s and 90s songs still emotionally resonate is because they often allowed emotional reflection, with songs about mistakes, lost love, regret, apologies, growing older, and trying again after a mistake. So modern culture often pushes constant confidence, but many older songs allowed people to say, I was wrong, I missed someone, I hurt someone, I wish I had done better. And that emotional honesty made many songs feel human. So I think Dwayne's biggest point is ultimately this one, that maturity requires reflection. You cannot become wiser if you refuse to examine your past honestly. And that does not mean hating yourself forever. It means learning, adjusting, becoming gentler, and understanding consequences more deeply. And that may be one reason older generations often become softer emotionally with age. Not weaker, but more aware of how fragile people actually are. And that's one of the healthiest form of growth a human being can experience. Alright everyone, so that's been our reflection on the channel Dry Creek Wrangler School. You can check it out, his channel, subscribe and watch the full video called Regrets. And let me know what you think in the comment section. So we're going to continue our live stream journey through the 80s and 90s here on Back to the Present, right after a brief recess with our segment called Tools for These Times.